The anatomy of spite, turning your darkest resentments into pure fuel. Introduction. The lie of the high road. There is a famous quote, often attributed to various spiritual teachers and modern self-help gurus. You have undoubtedly heard it, and you have likely tried to live by it. The quote is this: holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Society tells you that resentment is a disease. You are taught that to be a highly evolved, mature, and good person, you must practice radical forgiveness. When someone betrays you, when a colleague steals your credit, when a partner abandons you, or when a competitor mocks your ambition, you are instructed to let it go. You are told to take the high road. You are told to send them love and light, and to cleanse your heart of any dark, vindictive thoughts. You sit in a quiet room, you close your eyes, you take deep breaths, and you desperately try to meditate your anger away. You try to convince your nervous system that you are at peace, but your nervous system is not fooled. The anger does not vanish. It simply sinks into the basement of your subconscious, where it quietly rots, turning into anxiety, depression, and a suffocating sense of powerlessness. What I am about to tell you will violate every code of modern morality you have been programmed to believe. It will offend the delicate, the compliant, and the spiritually bypassed. But if you wish to ascend to the absolute pinnacle of human power, wealth, and sovereignty, you must accept this brutal, clinical reality. That quote about drinking poison is a lie. It is a psychological pacifier engineered by the weak to prevent the strong from destroying them. Anger is not a poison. Resentment is not a disease. Spite is not a flaw in your character. Spite is a high-octane, renewable neurochemical fuel source. It is the raw, unrefined uranium of the human soul. When spite is left unmanaged, when it is allowed to leak out in petty arguments, social media rants, or emotional outbursts, it is indeed toxic radiation that will destroy your life. But when spite is captured, refined, and placed into the cold, calculated reactor of human discipline, it produces enough kinetic energy to power an empire. If you look closely at the biographies of the most terrifyingly successful titans in human history, the billionaires, the conquerors, the elite athletes, their origin stories are rarely driven by a desire to make the world a better place. Their drive was forged in the fire of rejection. They were told they were too small, too stupid, or too poor. They were mocked. They were underestimated. And instead of forgiving those who mocked them, they weaponized the humiliation. They took that dark, heavy resentment, locked it in a vault in their minds, and used it as the relentless engine for their 100-hour workweeks. Their ultimate motivation was the intoxicating, deeply satisfying vision of looking down upon their enemies from the summit of absolute victory. In this exhaustive masterclass, we are going to perform psychological alchemy. We are going to explore the evolutionary biology of human anger, proving that your desire for revenge is a mathematical survival mechanism. We will dismantle slave morality and the myth of the high road. You will learn the physics of dark energy and how the elite transmute the lead of emotional trauma into the gold of material success. You will learn the taxonomy of the enemy, how to compile your ledger of debts, and exactly how to harness the explosive power of the spite engine without letting it consume you. If you are addicted to the comfort of forgiveness, if you are terrified of your own capacity for ruthlessness, if you prefer the sterile safety of being a nice person over the dangerous reality of being a sovereign, turn this audio off right now. Go back to your meditation cushion. Go back to the herd. But if you are tired of pretending that you are okay with being disrespected, if you are ready to stop drinking the sedative of the high road, if you are ready to look into the abyss of your own rage and harness the monster within, then listen closely. It is time to stop forgiving. It is time to start building. Chapter 1. The Evolutionary Biology of Retribution. To weaponize your resentments, we must first strip away the cultural conditioning that tells you they are evil. We must look at the cold, hard, unfeeling biology of human nature. Why do you feel spite? Why does your chest burn when you are humiliated? Why does your brain obsessively replay the memory of a betrayal even years after the event occurred? It is not because you are petty. It is because you are the direct genetic descendant of apex predators who survived the brutal, unforgiving conditions of the Pleistocene epoch. The survival mathematics of vengeance. Imagine our ancient ancestors living in a small nomadic tribe on the African savanna. Survival in this environment was a constant, razor-thin margin of caloric energy and physical safety. In this tribe, social status and reputation were not matters of ego, they were matters of literal life and death. If another member of the tribe stole your food or publicly humiliated you and you simply forgave and forgot, you broadcasted a catastrophic signal to the rest of the tribe. You signaled that you were a low-cost target. You signaled that you could be exploited without consequence. In the ancient world, a human who could not defend their boundaries was quickly marginalized, deprived of resources, and left to die. To prevent this, evolution designed a specialized neurological alarm system. When you were wronged, your brain did not produce feelings of peace and understanding. It triggered the amygdala, the threat detection center of your brain. The amygdala signaled your adrenal glands to flood your bloodstream with cortisol and epinephrine, adrenaline. Your heart rate spiked, your muscles tensed. Blood was diverted from your digestive organs to your limbs. Your biology was initiating the fight response. It was demanding physical action to punish the transgressor, restore your social status, and mathematically ensure that no one in the tribe would ever dare to exploit you again. The memory matrix of spite. But evolution did not just give us the immediate chemical rush of anger, it gave us the enduring memory of the grudge. Your brain contains a structure called the hippocampus, which is responsible for memory consolidation. The hippocampus works in tandem with the amygdala. When an event is accompanied by high emotional arousal, such as the deep shame of public humiliation or the shock of a betrayal, the amygdala essentially brands that memory with a chemical marker that says this is vital for survival. Never forget this. This is why you can easily forget what you ate for lunch 3 days ago, but you can remember the exact tone of voice a teacher used to insult your intelligence 20 years ago. Your brain holds on to that resentment as a protective shield. It replays the memory to keep you vigilant, to ensure you do not expose yourself to that specific threat again. The desire for retribution, the simmering spite, is your nervous system's way of demanding that the cosmic balance be restored. The modern mismatch and the toxic leak. When your boss steals your credit in a corporate meeting, your ancient biology initiates the exact same adrenal response as if a tribal rival had stolen your mammoth meat. Your brain demands violence. Your brain demands retribution. But your prefrontal cortex, the logical, civilized center of your brain, knows that if you physically attack your boss, you will be fired, arrested, and imprisoned. So you suppress the biological urge. You force a fake smile. You nod. You walk back to your cubicle. You have just trapped a massive amount of highly volatile, biological energy inside your nervous system with absolutely nowhere to go. When this energy is repressed and denied, it does not disappear. The law of thermodynamics states that energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed. Psychological energy follows the exact same law. The unexpressed anger turns inward. It becomes a slow, chronic leak of cortisol that destroys your immune system, disrupts your sleep architecture, and breeds a deep, insidious sense of self-loathing. You feel depressed because your biology knows that you have surrendered your sovereignty. To cure this, you cannot meditate the energy away. You cannot talk therapy the energy away. You must provide the energy with a target. you must transmute the biological urge to destroy your enemy into the unstoppable drive to conquer your reality. Chapter 2: The Mythology of the High Road and Slave Morality. If resentment is a natural, necessary biological drive, why does every major institution in society, religion, education, and modern psychology, obsessively demand that you practice forgiveness? Why is the high road praised as the ultimate virtue? To understand this, we must look at the mechanics of power and mass control. We must turn to the brilliant, uncompromising philosophy of the 19th century thinker Friedrich Nietzsche and his concept of master-slave morality. The inversion of values. Nietzsche observed that in the ancient world, the strong, capable, and dominant individuals, the masters, defined good as anything that enhanced power, vitality, and success. Strength, pride, ambition, and the ability to ruthlessly crush one's enemies were considered high virtues. Bad was anything associated with weakness, sickness, cowardice, or failure. The weak, subjugated masses, the slaves, could not compete in this arena of power. They lacked the physical strength, the strategic intellect, and the resources to fight the masters. They suffered deeply under the yoke of their powerlessness. But the human ego cannot tolerate permanent, acknowledged subjugation without collapsing into despair. The weak needed a coping mechanism. They needed a way to feel superior to the very people who were crushing them. So the weak orchestrated the most brilliant, devastating psychological coup in human history. They inverted the value system. They looked at the traits of the strong, ambition, wealth, dominance, and the capacity for revenge, and they redefined them as evil. Then they looked at their own unavoidable traits, poverty, submission, meekness, and their literal inability to take revenge, and redefined them as virtues. They called their forced submission humility. They called their poverty spiritual purity. And most importantly for our purposes, they called their inability to enact revenge forgiveness. The sedative of the weak. When a weak person is wronged by a powerful person, they cannot fight back. If they try, they will be destroyed. So they retreat to the safety of the herd, and they tell themselves a comforting lie. I could take revenge, but I choose not to, because I am a better, more moral person than they are. I will forgive them, and the universe will punish them for me. Forgiveness, in the modern context, is almost exclusively the virtue of the powerless. It is a psychological sedative. It allows the victim to feel a synthetic, unearned sense of moral superiority without having to engage in the terrifying, high-friction work of actual conflict. By inventing the high road, the weak created a fake summit that they could stand on to look down at the strong. Society perpetuates this slave morality because a functioning society requires docility. If every citizen acted on their resentments and demanded absolute respect, society would descend into chaotic tribal warfare. The corporate machine needs you to forgive the toxic boss so you will show up to work on Monday. The political machine needs you to forgive the corrupt system so you will continue to pay your taxes without revolting. The institutions tell you that anger is poison because your anger is a threat to their control. The sovereign's reality. The Machiavellian sovereign, the elite architect of reality, rejects slave morality entirely. The sovereign understands that true forgiveness can only occur when it is granted from a position of absolute, undeniable power. If you forgive someone because you lack the leverage to destroy them, you are not moral. You are simply harmless. When you adopt the high road because you are afraid of the friction of conflict, you are committing a micro-betrayal against your own soul. You are teaching your subconscious mind that your boundaries do not matter. You are internalizing your own subjugation. You must violently tear down the illusion that your docility makes you a saint. You must recognize that when you smile at the person who betrayed you and say, "It's okay, I forgive you," you are not achieving spiritual enlightenment. You are castrating your own potential. You are handing your enemy a victory and allowing them to walk away with zero consequences. To awaken the monster within, you must permit yourself to feel the raw, ugly, unvarnished hatred of the slight. You must stop trying to be the bigger person and start preparing to become the more powerful person. Chapter 3. The Physics of Dark Energy. Psychological Alchemy. We have established that spite is a biological reality. We have established that the demand for forgiveness is a societal trap. Now we must look at the mechanics of the energy itself. How do we take a feeling that is objectively painful, the burning in the chest, the obsessive thoughts, the toxic anger, and turn it into something useful? We must engage in psychological alchemy. In the ancient world, alchemists obsessed over the theoretical process of transmuting base, worthless metals, like lead, into pure, flawless gold. Psychological alchemy is the very real, highly actionable process of taking the toxic, heavy, destructive emotion of trauma, the lead, and running it through the furnace of your discipline until it becomes pure, high-octane momentum, the gold. To do this, you must understand the difference between unrefined spite and refined spite. Unrefined spite, the toxic leak. Unrefined spite is the default state of the amateur. It is anger that lacks a structural container. When the amateur is wronged, their ego is bruised and the biological energy spikes. Because they have no system to process this energy, it leaks in chaotic, destructive, and ultimately pathetic ways. The emotional outburst. They scream, they throw a tantrum, or they send a highly emotional, aggressive text message at 2 a.m. They give the enemy the exact reaction the enemy was hoping for, proving they are emotionally unstable and easily controlled. The gossip loop. They retreat to the crab bucket. They spend hours sitting in bars or break rooms complaining to their equally powerless friends about how unfair the situation was. They burn thousands of calories of cognitive energy tearing down the enemy in their minds, but they do absolutely nothing to elevate their own reality in the physical world. Passive aggression. They engage in sneaky, low-level sabotage. They forget to CC the enemy on an email. They make sarcastic remarks. All of these behaviors are unrefined spite. They are the psychological equivalent of an engine misfiring and venting toxic exhaust into the cabin of a car. Unrefined spite destroys your reputation, exhausts your central nervous system, and leaves you looking like a bitter, reactive victim. Refined spite, the focused laser. Refined spite is the hallmark of the sovereign. When the sovereign is wronged, the exact same biological spike of adrenaline and cortisol occurs. The sovereign feels the intense, burning desire for revenge. But the sovereign possesses an iron container, an unyielding prefrontal cortex trained by massive discipline. The sovereign does not send the angry text. The sovereign does not scream. The sovereign does not complain to their friends. The sovereign takes the raw, explosive energy of the slight and traps it inside the container. They seal it shut. They compress it. Imagine placing a massive amount of gunpowder on the open ground and lighting a match. It creates a loud, chaotic flash of fire and smoke that dissipates in a second, leaving nothing but a scorch mark. That is unrefined anger. Now imagine taking that exact same amount of gunpowder, packing it tightly into the brass casing of a bullet, and placing it inside the steel chamber of a rifle. When the primer is struck, the explosion cannot expand outward in a chaotic flash. The energy is trapped. The pressure builds to an unimaginable level until it finds the single, narrow point of exit, the barrel, and it drives a projectile forward with lethal, unstoppable, armor-piercing velocity. That is refined spite. The law of asymmetric vengeance. The sovereign understands that true revenge is never symmetrical. If someone insults your intelligence, insulting them back is symmetrical. It is a zero-sum game. You are fighting in the mud. True revenge is asymmetric. True revenge is utilizing the energy of their insult to build a reality where they become mathematically irrelevant. When you refine your spite, you do not use it to destroy the enemy directly. You use the enemy's face as the spark plug to ignite your own engine of self-improvement. When your alarm goes off at 4:30 a.m. and your weak, civilized self wants to hit the snooze button and go back to sleep, you do not rely on positive motivation. Positive motivation is weak. Positive motivation says, I should get up because I want to be healthy. The brain easily ignores that. Instead, you open the iron container. You visualize the face of the person who betrayed you. You remember the exact smirk they wore when they fired you. You remember the condescension in their voice when they rejected you. You let that hot, toxic, deeply painful emotion flood your chest for exactly 5 seconds. You feel the cortisol spike. You feel the rage. And then you close the container, throw the blankets off, and you use that rage to lift the heavy weights, to write the complex code, to make the cold calls. You transmute the desire to destroy them into the action required to build you. You do this every single day, for years, until one day you have built an empire so massive, so undeniably magnificent, that the person who wronged you is forced to stare at your success from the bottom of the mountain, realizing that their betrayal was the very catalyst that forged your crown. That is the alchemy of dark energy. That is the only acceptable form of revenge. Chapter 4. The Ledger of Debts, the Diagnostic Extraction. To build the spite engine, you must first gather the fuel. You cannot burn what you refuse to acknowledge. Because society has shamed you into suppressing your anger, your resentments are currently scattered, disorganized, and hidden in the dark corners of your subconscious. They are leaking out as generalized anxiety and passive aggression. You must extract them. You must bring them into the clinical, unforgiving light of the conscious mind. You must catalog your pain. You are going to create the ledger of debts. This is a highly classified, intensely private psychological document. It is not a diary of your feelings. It is a target acquisition matrix. It is the fuel inventory for your engine. You will never speak of this ledger to another living soul. If you share it, you dilute its power. It exists only for you. Step 1. The target acquisition. Find a secure, private notebook. Sit in total silence. You are going to bypass your nice guy persona and ask your shadow to speak. You will write down the names of the individuals, institutions, or groups that have fundamentally wronged you, rejected you, or caused you profound humiliation. Do not filter this list through the lens of rationality or fairness. If your conscious mind says, well, my boss fired me, but he was under a lot of stress from corporate, so I shouldn't be mad, that is slave morality trying to pacify you. If the event caused you pain, if it left a scar on your ego, the name goes in the ledger. The partner who abandoned you when you were at your lowest, the executive who took credit for your relentless labor, the high school teacher who told you that you lacked the intellect to succeed, the investor who laughed at your pitch, the family member who constantly mocks your ambition to make themselves feel comfortable in their mediocrity. Write their names in heavy black ink. See them clearly. Step 2. The autopsy of the offense. Next to each name, you must write down the exact nature of the crime. You must not use soft, forgiving language. You must describe the offense with brutal, agonizing clarity. You want to trigger the biological response. You want to feel the sting in your chest as you write it. Weak entry. Sarah broke up with me and it made me sad. Sovereign entry. Sarah looked me in the eye, told me I lacked the drive to provide the life she wanted and left me for a man with higher status. She stripped me of my dignity and discarded me because she perceived me as weak. Weak entry. Mark got the promotion instead of me. Sovereign entry. Mark manipulated the social dynamics of the office, stole the credit for the Alpha project, and smiled at me in the boardroom while the CEO handed him the leverage and the capital that rightfully belonged to my intellect. Read back the sovereign entries to yourself. Feel the spike of heat in your neck. Feel the tightening of your jaw. That sensation is not a sin. That sensation is power. It is your nervous system screaming that a debt is owed. It is the raw uranium freshly mined from the earth waiting to be placed into the reactor. Step 3. The asymmetric calculation, the final pivot. The ledger of debts is not a hit list. You are not going to slash Mark's tires or send Sarah an angry letter. Doing so would be surrendering your power and acting like a peasant. The final column of the ledger is the asymmetric calculation. For every name and every offense, you must write down the exact, massive, undeniably constructive achievement you will secure that will render their existence entirely irrelevant. You are connecting the dark fuel to the engine of your ambition. Target Sarah. Asymmetric calculation. I will build a physique of absolute, undeniable elite capability. I will construct a multi-million-dollar asset portfolio. I will forge a reality of such supreme, untouchable status that the life she left me for will look like a slum in comparison. I will become the ghost that haunts her standard of excellence. Target Mark. Asymmetric calculation. I will relentlessly acquire specialized, non-replicable skills in the dark hours. I will launch an independent venture that eclipses the revenue of this entire department. Within 5 years, I will return not as an employee, but as an acquirer, and I will mathematically force him to realize he is a pawn in a game I now own. Look at the transformation on the page. You have taken the raw, paralyzing trauma of rejection, and you have hardwired it directly into a blueprint for massive, undeniable self-elevation. You have stopped being a victim of their cruelty, and you have made them the unpaid, involuntary architects of your ascent. This is the agonizing, necessary extraction you must endure to break the chains of forgiveness. Your desire for retribution is not a sickness, it is a biological imperative. The societal demand that you take the high road is a trick designed to keep you docile, weak, and perfectly safe in the cage of your own unfulfilled potential. Every time you suppress your anger, you are bleeding your own life force. You are letting the enemy win twice, once in the physical world and permanently in the psychological world. But mining the uranium is only the beginning. Staring at the ledger of debts and feeling the anger does not automatically build the empire. Uncontrolled heat will melt the engine. Spite without strategy is just a temper tantrum. In Part 2 of this masterclass, we will move from extraction to absolute ruthless integration. You will learn the mechanics of the spite engine, how to dose this dark energy safely without burning out your central nervous system. We will explore the narcissism override and how to use the arrogance of your enemies as a mirror for your own tactical blind spots. You will learn how to build the silent grudge, operating with the warm, velvet smile of a diplomat while carrying the cold, unforgiving memory of an executioner. We will learn how to stop surviving our resentments and how to weaponize them. The illusion of the high road is dead. The ledger is written. Prepare yourself. The true ignition of the dark engine is about to begin. Chapter 5. The Spite Engine. Dosing the Dark Energy. We have performed the extraction. You have descended into the basement of your subconscious. You have your ledger of debts. You see the names written in black ink. You have mapped the exact nature of their crimes against your ego. You feel the sting in your chest. You have identified the raw, unrefined uranium of your resentment. But as we warned in the introduction, spite without structure is merely a temper tantrum. It is a chaotic flash of fire that consumes the house but leaves the empire unbuilt. Unrefined spite is a toxic leak. It destroys the vessel that holds it. To build the empire, you must become the operator of the spite engine. You must learn to dose this dark energy with the clinical precision of a chemist handling a highly volatile, explosive reagent. The thermodynamics of the reactor. In physics, the first law of thermodynamics states that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed or transferred from one form to another. The human nervous system operates on the exact same universal law. The intense, burning anger you feel when you are betrayed or humiliated is a massive concentration of biological kinetic energy. It is cortisol and adrenaline begging to be released. The spite engine is a closed system. Its singular purpose is to take the kinetic energy of human aggression, prevent it from escaping, and convert it into the potential energy of sustained, high-level, empire-building productivity. If you let the spite leak, if you gossip about the person who wronged you, if you vent to your friends, if you send an angry text message, or if you plot petty, immediate revenge, you are venting the pressure. You are opening the valve. The engine stalls. You lose the fuel. Every time you complain about your enemies, you are handing them your power. You are bleeding out your own momentum for the cheap, temporary dopamine hit of feeling validated by your peers. To operate the reactor, you must maintain absolute containment. When you feel the spite surge, when the memory of the betrayal burns behind your eyes, when the cortisol spikes and your jaw clenches, your primal evolutionary instinct will be to discharge that energy immediately. You will want to lash out. You will want to scream. You will want to prove your worth to the person who doubted you in that exact moment. You must violently intercept that instinct. Instead of moving outward, you move inward. You seal the heavy steel container of your mind. You increase the internal pressure. You keep the rage trapped inside your nervous system, allowing it to heat up the prefrontal cortex until your focus is absolute, piercing, and terrifyingly sharp. You take the energy of "I'll show them" and you compress it entirely into the grueling, unglamorous work in front of you. The titration protocol and adrenal burnout. However, there is a profound biological danger to operating this machinery. You cannot run the spite engine at 100% capacity 24 hours a day. The human central nervous system is biological. It is not made of titanium and carbon fiber. If you attempt to fuel your entire existence with pure, unadulterated hatred at maximum throttle, you will suffer a catastrophic biological burnout. You will fry your adrenal glands. You will experience hormonal collapse, chronic insomnia, and erratic emotional decision-making. The reactor will melt down and destroy the host. To survive the engine, you must master titration. In chemistry, titration is the process of adding small, highly controlled, measured amounts of a reactive chemical into a solution until the exact desired reaction is achieved without causing an explosion. You must titrate your spite. The baseline work, most of your day, the daily administrative tasks, the emails, the mundane grind, the operational maintenance of your life, should be fueled by standard, cold, professional discipline. This is the idle state of the engine. It runs on habit. It runs on logic. The spite boost. You must save the high-octane spite
only for the moments of extreme, paralyzing resistance. When you face a task that is genuinely daunting, a high-stakes negotiation where you are vastly outmatched, a creative hurdle that feels impossible, a grueling physical workout where your lungs are burning and your brain is begging you to quit, that is when you walk to the vault. You open the heavy door, you pull out the ledger of debts, you look at the name of the person who humiliated you, you visualize their smirk, you remember the exact tone of their voice when they rejected you. You let the heat flood your chest. You inject one single potent drop of that dark energy into your nervous system. You use that specific high-intensity chemical spike to blast through the wall of resistance and carry you through the 3 hours of agonizing deep work that your positive, motivated self would have abandoned. And the moment the work is done, you close the vault, you return to the baseline, you lower your heart rate, you maintain the container. Practice application 1, the containment audit. You must learn to recognize when you are leaking fuel. For the next 7 days, you are going to perform the containment audit. Every time you feel the urge to complain about someone who has wronged you, whether to a coworker, a spouse, or on social media, you must freeze. Catch the urge in the back of your throat. Ask yourself, am I about to vent this pressure for free? Swallow the words. Bite your tongue until it bleeds if you must. Take that urge to complain, realize it is pure combustible energy, and immediately redirect it into completing one single difficult task on your daily agenda. Transmute the complaint into an execution.
Chapter 6. The Narcissism Override. The Mirror of Arrogance. We have established the thermodynamics of the engine. Now, we must address the psychological firewall required to protect it, the narcissism override. As you begin to build your empire, as you begin to harness your spite and ruthlessly elevate your status, a predictable, inevitable phenomenon will occur. You will be attacked by the masses. Your peers, your extended family, and the people who were deeply comfortable with the small version of you will look at your newfound unyielding discipline. They will see your intense focus, your refusal to participate in their gossip, and your relentless pursuit of victory. And they will attack your character. They will call you arrogant. They will call you self-obsessed. They will diagnose you as a narcissist. You must understand the psychology of this attack. They are projecting. They are terrified. They are experiencing catastrophic cognitive dissonance because you are no longer playing the societal game of mutual mediocrity. By refusing to stay in the crab bucket, your ascent exposes their laziness. To protect their own fragile egos, they must frame your ambition as a psychological defect. If you are a narcissist, then they don't have to feel bad about their own lack of achievement. If you possess a weak, approval-seeking frame, this accusation will break you. You will apologize. You will dim your light. You will shrink back down to make them comfortable. You must not fall into that trap. You must develop the narcissism override. The protocol of tactical arrogance. To be clear, you must not become a true clinical narcissist. A true pathological narcissist is actually a deeply fragile slave. They are entirely dependent on the external validation and opinions of others. They desperately need the applause of the room just to feel like they exist. They are addicted to the mirror, and when the mirror shatters, they collapse. The sovereign does not need the applause. The sovereign utilizes tactical arrogance. Tactical arrogance is a temporary, highly calibrated psychological frame you adopt specifically to bypass the doubt, the mockery, and the limiting beliefs of the masses. When you are doing something revolutionary, when you are taking a massive risk that everyone else is too cowardly to touch, starting a new business, moving across the world, pivoting your entire career, you will be surrounded by a chorus of critics. They will tell you it's impossible. They will tell you that the market is saturated. They will tell you that you are delusional. If you listen to their logic, you will fail, because their logic is based on their own limitations. You must deploy a controlled, clinical narcissism. You must look at the critics and with complete, detached, unshakable internal certainty realize that their opinion is utterly irrelevant. Their doubt is based on their past experiences, not your future capability. They are measuring your engine with their broken yardstick. You must override their doubt with your own absolute certainty. You must allow yourself to believe, for the duration of the execution phase, that you are the only one in the room who sees the truth. You must believe that you possess a unique, undeniable genius that the masses are simply too blind to recognize yet. This is not a delusion. It is the necessary, functional belief system of the pioneer. It is the armor required to walk through the fire of public doubt without burning to death. The mirror of blind spots. But there is a second, highly strategic use for the concept of narcissism. You must use the arrogance of your enemies as a mirror for your own tactical blind spots. When you look at your ledger of debts, you will likely see the names of people who are incredibly arrogant, people who think they are untouchable. Do not just hate their arrogance. Hate is an emotion, and emotion makes you blind. You must study their arrogance with the cold precision of a military strategist evaluating an enemy fortress. Study their ego. Where do they overreach? Where do they become sloppy? Where does their need to be the center of attention cause them to alienate their allies? Where does their arrogance cloud their logistical judgment? When you observe the arrogance of your enemy, you are looking at the exact structural flaw where their empire will eventually collapse. You are seeing the exact point where their unmanaged engine is going to overheat, melt down, and explode. Map their flaws, catalog their blind spots, and then execute the ultimate sovereign pivot. Ensure that you never, ever commit the same tactical error. The integrated sovereign is a walking paradox. Internally, you are the most arrogant, unyielding, fiercely confident person in the room. You believe you are destined to conquer. But externally, in your execution, you are the most humble, observant, and adaptable student of reality. You act as if you have everything to learn. You assume nothing. You calculate everything. Internal arrogance provides the fuel. External humility provides the map. That is how you stay alive.
Chapter 7. The Architecture of Asymmetric Vengeance. We have harnessed the engine. We have built the armor of tactical arrogance. Now we must master the operational code of the sovereign. We must discuss the actual execution of revenge. The greatest, most pathetic mistake of the amateur is symmetrical vengeance. Symmetrical vengeance is a zero-sum game. It is fighting in the mud. If a colleague insults your intelligence in a meeting, symmetrical vengeance is insulting them back. If a rival steals your client, symmetrical vengeance is trying to steal one of theirs. If your ex-partner tries to make you jealous on social media, symmetrical vengeance is posting a photo to make them jealous in return. When you engage in symmetrical vengeance, you are accepting the opponent's frame. You are agreeing to play by their rules on their level, using their weapons. You validate their attack by reacting to it directly. You look petty, emotional, and easily manipulated. The sovereign rejects symmetry entirely. The sovereign operates exclusively on the law of asymmetric vengeance. The irrelevance protocol. Asymmetric vengeance is the realization that true, ultimate revenge is not about destroying the enemy directly. It is about fundamentally altering the reality in which the enemy exists until they become mathematically and socially irrelevant. You do not fight them on the battlefield they chose. You build a new battlefield, place yourself on the throne, and lock them outside the gates. Let us return to the ledger of debts. If Mark, the manipulative executive, stole your promotion and smiled at you in the boardroom, the amateur plots to sabotage Mark's next presentation. The amateur tries to spread rumors about Mark. The amateur expends precious, finite cognitive energy trying to tear Mark down. The sovereign takes the white-hot rage of Mark's betrayal, seals it in the spite engine, and initiates the asymmetric protocol. The sovereign ignores Mark entirely. The sovereign redirects 100% of their aggressive energy into acquiring specialized, rare, non-replicable skills in the dark hours. The sovereign networks outside the company, builds an independent venture, and scales an entirely new asset class. The sovereign spends 5 years utilizing Mark's face as the spark plug to power an inhuman work ethic. And then, 5 years later, the sovereign returns, not as an employee competing with Mark for a middle management promotion. The sovereign returns as the CEO of an acquiring firm or as a massive external client. The sovereign sits across the table from Mark, looks at him, and realizes that Mark is still fighting for scraps in the same middle management mud pit. The ultimate, devastating blow of asymmetric vengeance is not delivered with a shout. It is delivered with the cold, crushing realization that you have outgrown the enemy's capacity to even interact with you. You do not destroy them. You force them to witness your transcendence. You force them to live the rest of their mediocre lives knowing that their petty betrayal was the exact catalyst that forged your crown. The law of the cold blood. To execute asymmetric vengeance, you must master the law of the cold blood. Revenge is a dish best served freezing cold. If you strike when you are angry, you will make a mistake. You will leave a trail of evidence. You will look emotional. The sovereign carries the grudge in complete, suffocating silence. You place the grudge in the freezer. You wait for the exact, perfect, mathematically optimal moment to execute the asymmetric calculation. You wait until the enemy has completely forgotten about the slight. You wait until they feel perfectly safe. You wait until you possess absolute, undeniable leverage. And when you execute the maneuver, whether it is a corporate acquisition, a strategic market takeover, or a total severance of a toxic relationship, you do it without a single drop of emotion in your voice. You do not gloat. You do not explain that this is payback for what they did 5 years ago. If you tell them you're getting revenge, you are proving they hurt you. You are validating their ego. The victim wants the enemy to know they were hurt. The sovereign wants the enemy to lose and not even know who destroyed them. You execute the maneuver with the polite, sterile excuse of strictly business. You leave them bewildered, dismantled, and utterly powerless, fighting a ghost they cannot even name.
Chapter 8. Social Camouflage. Diplomat in public, executioner in private. If you are running a high-powered spite engine and you are quietly architecting asymmetric vengeance against the names in your ledger, you face a significant logistical problem. How do you exist in normal society? If you walk around the office glaring at your enemies, grinding your teeth, and projecting dark, hostile energy, you will be flagged as a threat. Human beings are highly attuned to aggressive body language. If your enemies know you hate them, they will build defenses. They will form alliances against you. They will monitor your movements. To operate freely, to gather intelligence, and to maneuver into the optimal position for your ascent, you must become invisible. You must master social camouflage. The greatest mistake of the amateur is the leaky grudge. They cannot control their micro-expressions. When the person they hate walks into the room, they cross their arms, they frown, they roll their eyes, or they make passive-aggressive, sarcastic remarks. Every time you leak your disdain, you bleed power. You inform your enemies of your exact emotional state. You give them a free, highly detailed roadmap of your vulnerabilities. The diplomacy of the smile. The sovereign operates under a dual identity protocol, a diplomat in public and an executioner in private.
You must practice diplomatic immunity. You must be the most polite, the most helpful, and the most fiercely professional person in the room, especially, and most crucially, to the very people whose names are written in black in your ledger of debts. This requires supreme, masterful emotional control. It is the ultimate flex of the prefrontal cortex over the amygdala. Why do we do this? For two distinct Machiavellian reasons. First, the armor of professionalism. When you are relentlessly polite, helpful, and professional, you are unassailable. You leave absolutely no paper trail of hostility. If your enemy attempts to complain about you to a superior or attempts to rally peers against you, they will sound crazy. The group will say, "What are you talking about? He is incredibly nice to you. He just helped you with your quarterly report." By being polite, you deny your enemy any ammunition to use against you. You isolate them in their own paranoia. Second, the shattering of the frame. When you smile warmly to the colleague who backstabbed you or the ex-partner who betrayed you, you are engaging in high-level psychological warfare. They know what they did. They expect you to be angry. They expect you to be bitter. They are braced for your hostility. When you offer them a warm Duchenne smile, ask about their weekend, and offer to buy them a coffee, you completely shatter their psychological frame. You create massive cognitive dissonance in their brain. They will think, "Why are they being so nice to me? Did they not realize I betrayed them? Or perhaps they simply do not care. Am I that insignificant to them?" By being polite, you signal that their attack had absolutely zero impact on your emotional ecosystem. You prove that they are irrelevant. It is incredibly unnerving to an aggressor. While they are busy being profoundly confused and uncomfortable by your warmth, your mind is in a state of absolute surgical detachment. If you are busy being angry, you are distracted. If you are busy being polite, you are calculating. You are the smiling ghost. You walk through walls, you gather the data, and you quietly build the empire right under their noses. Practice application 2, the velvet glove drill. To master social camouflage, you must test it in the field. Identify one person in your current environment who is a low-level nuisance, someone who constantly makes slight, passive-aggressive digs, or someone you generally find irritating but who holds no real power over you. For the next 2 weeks, you will apply the velvet glove protocol to them exclusively. You are not allowed to show a single micro-expression of annoyance. When they make a passive-aggressive comment, you will not defend yourself and you will not attack back. You will look them in the eye, offer a warm, genuine smile, and agree with them enthusiastically. You will go out of your way to greet them warmly every morning. Treat them with the indulgent, unbothered affection you would give a misbehaving golden retriever. Watch their reaction. Watch them slowly become disoriented, confused, and eventually entirely defanged by your relentless, impenetrable warmth. When you realize that you can control the emotional state of an adversary simply by refusing to match their hostility, you will never react to an insult again. You will own the room.
Chapter 9. The Ascendancy. From Spite to Sovereignty. You have reached the end of the descent. You have mapped the architecture of the dark. We began this journey by performing a violent, unapologetic autopsy on your resentments. We stripped away the weak, pacifying societal conditioning that told you your anger was a sin, a disease, or a flaw in your character. We dragged you out of the sterile, suffocating illusion of the high road. We showed you that your spite is not poison. It is the raw, unrefined, immensely powerful uranium of the human soul. You learned the brutal mechanics of psychological alchemy. You learned how to extract the pain of your humiliations, catalog them in the ledger of debts, and link them to the asymmetric calculation of your own massive ambition. We taught you how to build the spite engine. We explored the thermodynamics of emotional containment, warning you against the fatal error of the leaky grudge. You learned the delicate science of titration, how to dose the dark energy to blast through walls of resistance without burning out your adrenal system. You forged the armor of tactical arrogance to survive the chorus of critics, and you learned to use their hubris as a mirror for your own blind spots. You mastered the law of cold blood, understanding that true revenge is never a shouting match in the mud. It is the silent, calculated, asymmetric destruction of your enemy's relevance. And finally, you learned to walk through the world as the smiling ghost, a diplomat in public, projecting impenetrable warmth and professionalism, while the executioner quietly builds the empire in the dark. You are no longer a victim of your own emotions. You are no longer a slave to the opinions of the masses who demand your docility. You have looked into the terrifying, chaotic abyss of your own rage, and instead of flinching, instead of apologizing, you have harnessed the monster within. You have turned your betrayal into your blueprint. You have turned your deepest humiliation into your ultimate catalyst. There is an ancient, unyielding, brutal truth about the architecture of human history that the masses will never, ever understand. The most formidable, reality-bending titans in human history were rarely driven by love or peace or a desire for harmony. They were driven by the need to prove the world wrong. They were driven by the cold, biting, razor-sharp realization that they were the ones who deserved the crown, and they were willing to tear the fabric of reality apart to take it from the hands of the unworthy. Your spite is the ultimate renewable energy source. It is the fuel that never runs dry. It is the drive that carries you through the 100-hour work weeks when your peers are resting. It is the hyper-focus that sharpens your edge into a lethal blade, while the rest of the world is drowning in the sedative of comfort and cheap dopamine. But you must always, relentlessly remember the cost of the engine. You are operating a fragile biological machine on nuclear fuel. You must maintain the container. You must never allow the spite to leak into your daily interactions. You must never allow the heat of the grudge to melt the reactor and destroy the very life you are trying to build. You remain the absolute sovereign of your own soul. You remain the cold, clinical master of your own engine. The anger serves you. You do not serve the anger. The next time you feel the sharp, familiar sting of the slight, the next time you remember the smirk of the person who betrayed you, the partner who abandoned you, or the boss who humiliated you, the next time your civilized, domesticated self begs you to just let it go, to be the bigger person and to forgive them for your own peace of mind, freeze. Anchor your feet to the earth. Do not run from the pain. Do not hide from the memory. Open the heavy steel door of the mental vault. Look directly at their face in your mind. Feel the heat. Let the toxic, burning anger flood your chest. Let it spike your heart rate. Let it wake up the predator sleeping in your DNA. And then seal the container. Lock the vault. Throw the blankets off, stand up, and get back to the grueling, glorious work of building your empire. You were not born to forgive. You were born to build. Now go and claim your throne. Thank you for staring into the abyss and embracing the dark energy with quick audiobooks. If this masterclass has shattered your chains, fueled your engine, and given you the keys to your own psychological sovereignty, ensure you subscribe, like, and return for more uncompromising, relentless deep dives into psychology, power, and the pursuit of absolute freedom. Until next time, reclaim your resentment, stay sovereign, and stay dangerous.